All right, great. So now we are live, and so welcome to today. We're doing an introductory it. So many times in English we use the word it, but we don't know why. Or, I enjoy doing something and I enjoy it a lot, and a lot of people forget that it. So that's why I thought it might be a very good time to do this. And so, yeah. So, any questions before we get going with this?
No.
All right. If you do have questions, let me know. As usual, please vocalize it because I don't always look at the Hangout then. So let me share this with you. All right, and so I'm at the top of the page here. So great. Okay, so we'll just kind of go through this, make it a tiny bit bigger. There you go. So it looks pretty good now, doesn't it? All right. Okay, so the introductory it. Okay, doing this presentation, I also have found out there's an introductory there, I think. So that might be another day, but we'll start with this for today. So, okay, the subject. All right, so we're just going to go through many different types of examples, basically. All right, so the subject is an infinitive phrase. So this is basically when we start a sentence with it. Sorry, I am I'm jumping forward here, so let's back up. Okay, so when the subject is an infinitive phrase, we start a sentence with it when the real subject is an infinitive phrase, all right? So for our example, to understand your opinion is difficult, all right? So we're starting this sentence with to understand, which is our infinitive phrase, okay? And so we might say, it is difficult to understand your opinion. Okay, we still are using all of the words. Okay, the only thing is that we're adding the word it in this case. All right, so do you see what I'm doing here? Is this clear? The instructions, like this part of everything we're going to see today, might be difficult, but I think through the examples, you should be able to understand it. Does that work for you so far?
Yes, and I have one question. Maybe to understand comma, your opinion is difficult, is more better writing? I mean, I don't know.
I don't think we need a comma here. To understand your
Okay.
opinion is difficult. Yeah, commas are used more for emphasis. I should actually do a
Mm,
comma class, shouldn't I?
no,
Um, do a comma class. And because I love to use commas, and you can kind of use them freely in English, with
mm,
the exception of it has to be kind of that pause. And so to understand your opinion is difficult. It doesn't really sound that good. I would say it quicker than that. So to understand your opinion is difficult. I'm
mm,
pausing more here after opinion.
I see.
Okay? So this is probably the main part, and then we're going to add our opinion about this topic, okay?
Okay.
And then here, it is difficult to understand your opinion. Again, I wouldn't use a comma there necessarily. All right. So maybe I can do a comma class. I think that'd be interesting and kind of good review for me
Yeah,
as well. So
yeah, yeah.
fantastic. Okay. All right. So now we get into kind of other stuff here. Let me just do that quick. Okay. So in this next part that we're going to look at, the structure is it plus a verb, then the subject complement, then the infinitive phrase or the real subject, as we saw in the first part here. Okay? The real subject is the infinitive phrase. So here we just have some examples. All right, so it is fun to learn other languages. Okay, and we can also say to learn other languages is fun. Okay, it doesn't mean that you always have to use this it, but this is when we use it. All right, we just use it so many times, and it's just a different way to say something else. Okay, so now here it says it is difficult to know his motive, or to know his motive is difficult. All right, it is hard to find a job during these difficult times, or we can say to find a job during these difficult times is hard. Okay, all we're doing is taking out it when we're saying it differently and rearranging the sentences. Okay, then we have it is unsafe to play with fire. Hopefully everyone knows that. To play with fire is unsafe, is the other way. And it is dangerous to drive really fast, or you can say to drive really fast is dangerous. Okay, does anyone have any questions so far with these examples? This technically, as far as I'm concerned, is a very high level. Okay, this is advanced. This is higher than intermediate, higher than upper intermediate. This is advanced. Okay, all right, so I suppose I will just continue then. And I might have some of you read, all right, just so we can, oh no, okay, that's fine. All right, so Ken, could you please read this whole part that you see on the screen for me?
Okay. When we want to emphasize the infinitive phrase, it can be put at the start of the sentence, particularly when it's short. To spend all the money in one company is unwise, or it is unwise to spend all the money in one company.
Exactly. So this kind of continues with, what we were just looking at. All right. So any questions? And so basically
So,
we went from starting with,
I'm sorry, these two
yes.
sentences, nuance are exactly the same or a bit different. To spend all the
No, they're
money.
the same.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
meaning and nuance are same. Okay.
Yep, it's the same meaning. It's just a different way to emphasize. Okay.
I understand. So if I say it is unwise, maybe unwise is emphasized. And to spend all the money means to spend emphasized.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, I got it.
The it in this case is what I like to refer to as a situation. That's kind of how I've explained things in the past, is it doesn't really mean it as, a singular non-person subject. It's kind of just the situation. So this situation of spending all the money in one company is unwise. Okay, so there's lots of different ways that we can actually say this. Um, but I just thought that as it here is just one of those things that it's just so common, and a lot of people don't write it. And that's basically with my experience here in Spain and teaching. It's one of the things people forget a lot. So that's kind of why I wanted to do this. All right. So let's continue with looking at some other examples. All right. Let's see. Dan, you are next. So Dan, why don't you go ahead and read this, okay?
Yes, sure. The subject is a gerund phrase. When the actual subject is a gerund, it's used as a temporary subject to start the sentence. For example, you're trying to convince us it is not worth it. We say it's not worth you trying to convince us.
Good. Actually, this it doesn't, I don't like that there. But then it had said that this was incorrect before, so that's why I changed it. All right, so you trying to convince us is
It is
not
not
worth
worth
it.
it.
It
is not worth you trying to
Okay, and then
convince
it's
us.
And so depending on what you're starting with, okay, that's kind of your opinion off, kind of like with question tags. You don't speak French, do you? Okay, when I say you don't, that means I don't think you do. So I'm saying my opinion, okay, before I'm actually finishing the sentence. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good. All right, so any questions?
No.
Maybe not. All right. Okay. Well, let me move this down a little bit. I think there's some more examples here. Actually, we'll do this. So, Geraldo, would you like to read this amount, all of these examples for us?
Sure. Okay. For example, It won't be any good complaining to the manager. We say complaining to the manager won't be any good. The next example says, for example, it's silly throwing away this chance, and we say throwing away this chance is silly.
Okay, good. So chance in this case means kind of like opportunity. Okay. Good. So again, we're kind of starting out with our opinion, so it won't be any good. All right. So when we're starting with this part of the sentence, we're saying don't do it. Okay. When I'm saying complaining to the manager, we're talking about kind of the subject in general without giving our opinion first. Do you see that? Okay. So this part's here. I'll just put this in bold. And so this part that's in bold is basically your opinion. Okay. And the other part of the sentence is just kind of the situation and what's going on. All right. So if you want to start with your opinion, you'll start with it won't, or it won't be any good in this case. All right. And then you'll kind of tell the situation. Same thing with here. It's silly. Okay. Silly is our adjective. So it's silly. It's not a great idea. Throwing away this chance. Don't do that, they're basically saying. Okay? So again, it just depends where you want to emphasize this sentence. Does all of this make sense? I mean, is this okay?
Yes, for me.
All right, fantastic. Well, Kent, we're back to you. Actually, let me read these two and then you read the next part here. So in these last two examples, it says, would it be any good my talking to him about it? And you could say, would my talking to him about it be any good? All right, and so this is a sentence where we're asking a question. All right, so we're doing a little bit different here. And so that's why we're starting out with would, okay, and not it. In this case, my talking, I believe talking would be considered a noun in this case. It's not really the fact that I am talking to him, so it's not a verb tense in this case. Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's kind of noun.
Right. A little bit confusing because it is a verb with ing, but in this case we're not using it as in, a verb tense. Okay? All right. So, and then again in this case, just rearranging the sentence. Yes?
Any good means, will it be any good? Maybe means good.
Yep, this
Nothing
any
bad
right
or
here is kind of adding more information. It would be any good. Is it going to be any help? Am I going to, would it be good? Yeah, that's actually a really good question. This sounds very native to me. This sounds like something that I would never really teach. And so this any here is kind of saying, would it help any tiny bit, if I would talk to him? So any good. All right, so any plus adjectives. See, this is why I like to do the advanced classes, because it gives me other ideas for classes. And I think it's good. It's good for me to be challenged as well, and because I don't know all the answers in English. Okay, so that's good. So yeah, this is kind of giving even more emphasis here. All right, any questions about this? We haven't seen questions yet, so. All right, well, Ken, you can go ahead and read what's left on this page, okay?
Okay. It's possible to change the gerund into an infinitive. It won't be any good for me to complain to the manager. It's silly for you to throw away this opportunity. Will it be any good for me to talk to him about it?
Good. So we're changing some of these. All right. In this sentence before I had chance, so I might change that back. All right. it's silly. And here in this sentence, we actually don't need for you, but you can say it if you want to kind of even more add more emphasis. All right, so the gerund, for example, in the first one, let's see here. We're using complaining, okay, in both of these sentences. So let's underline that. And so basically what we can do is just change it to the infinitive. All right, so here we use, oops, not me. We're using to complain instead of complaining. All right, in this case, there's no difference.
So for me to complaining, complain, sorry, not complaining. Sorry,
Yeah, that doesn't sound good. It won't be any good complaining. If I were to take out for me, I would say here we could have complaining. Okay? All right, so it does make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. Same thing with here. What did we have in the first sentence? It's the throwing, okay? So again, if we take out to throw and we take out for you, it's silly throwing away this chance. You know, we can say that as well, which is exactly what we have here. But that's why they've added for you. Okay, you can say that or you don't have to say that. And here we have for me, and so that's why we have the infinitive as well. All right, so we are following a structure. But it's just a little difficult sometimes to actually put into action. You know, to understand it is one thing, and then to actually use it is another. So let's continue down here. All right, so a lot of these sentences can be rewritten, as exclamatory sentences. For example, how silly of you to throw away this chance. Okay, and so we're changing this kind of all together. Let me see if I can back this up a little bit here so you can see the other one as well. All right, we have this one in the picture, that's fine. So it's silly for you to throw away this chance. Okay, we can also say, how silly of you to throw away this chance. Do you see what's going on here? Instead of it is silly, we say, how silly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. That is a bit complicated, so it's a bit difficult to make the exclamatory.
Yep, just adds even more emphasis in this. There's lots of grammar going on in this, this PDF today, and it's probably a little bit intimidating, but don't worry about it. So if we continue on here, Dan, I believe you're next to read. Is that true?
Yes.
If you could read.
Dan left because he has meetings.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh boy. See, this is what happens when I don't go back into back in 10 minutes.
You cannot see the Google chat, right? Okay.
All right. Yep. I have to pop back in every once in a while. All right. Lots of stuff to focus on here. So good. So Geraldo, would you mind reading everything that you see on this page?
Okay, teacher.
Capital letters. Okay, perfect.
Okay. It says the subject is a clause. The sentence usually begins with it. For example, he was once a doctor is true. We say, it is true that we was once a doctor. Another example, it doesn't matter if he comes or not. And we say, if he comes or not doesn't matter.
Good. Okay, so let's look at this one. He was once a doctor is true. Okay, so basically what they're saying is, the basic structure of a sentence, the subject, then our verb, and then our complement is here. So what we're doing is starting with that complement. It is true. All right, so again, it's just adding more emphasis. All right, that he was once a doctor, that one time in his life, he was a doctor. Okay. And then here, it doesn't matter if he comes or not. We say, if he comes or not, I would say it doesn't matter. Sounds better to me. It doesn't matter. Okay? I actually just had this question in my class this week. the difference between it doesn't matter and I don't mind. Okay, it doesn't matter is something, I think matter is used more with kind of it situations or he, no, I would say in general, it doesn't matter, you know, the situation. But if it's your opinion or someone's opinion, I would say don't mind. Okay, so he doesn't mind, we should say. He doesn't mind, oops, mind, for example. All right, so we use mind more with people. It's just kind of a trick that I've found this week. I'm not saying that it's 100%, but I just feel that that's kind of the best way to explain the differences here. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out as well, and that's that. So let's go down here. All right, so maybe I'll read this. Well, actually, Ken, this is perfect. Ken, you can go ahead and read everything you see on the page here, okay?
Okay. For example, it is clear that he was listening in our conversation. We said that he was listening in our conversation is clear. For example, it is obvious that you aren't interested in this proposal. We say that you aren't interested in the proposal is obvious.
Mm-hmm.
I
What's
didn't
this?
know this that can be used in this way. I know, yeah, it uses, but okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. So should I let you absorb this some more, or does that make sense? You know, and actually, I missed one too. Sorry. So it is obligatory that he pay the fine, okay, and that he pays the fine is obligatory. All right. This is pay, and I don't know if I have a reason for that. Pay the fine.
I think because of that, derivative pronoun.
I think if we were to put to here, where that he, I think if we put to, oops, I think that's the difference. Okay, so we're kind of switching around that he, and that's why pay does not have an S at the end like it does here.
Wow. Difficult for non-native speakers. Anyway.
I think we've gone to the highest level of English that I've ever taught. So yes, there's so much here, and sometimes it's not always that you understand why, but that it sounds okay. And I'm trying to think is to pay the fine is obligatory. We kind of take out that he, and we replace that he pays with to pay, the infinitive. Okay. So there's lots of different ways to say the same thing. And so, like I said, there's just so much in this PDF today that your head might hurt before you go to bed tonight. So all right, so let's look at these examples again. Any questions? We often see listen to. Okay, so we could also say that that he was listening to our conversation is clear. I put listening in on. Now we have in and on together. And I'm trying to think, how can I explain this? He was integrated into the conversation so much that he was basically spying on. Okay, to listen in, you can listen into a radio show, for example, where you're listening to the radio. Okay, but in this case, we're using these two prepositions here. Maybe this is a three-word phrasal verb that we can use. Okay. So listen in on is basically paying really close attention to. That's shorter than paying attention to. So does that kind of make sense?
Maybe careful listening for secretly.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this is basically, I don't want to say spy, like to spy. But yeah, I mean, listening very carefully, listening with a lot of attention. Trying to think if I should write an example here. She was listening in on the radio when she heard that she won the contest, for example. Okay, so she was listening and she was paying attention to the radio. All right, so it's a little bit different use there. Does that kind of make sense?
But this sentence is not secret listening, right? Just
No,
careful listening. No.
exactly.
Okay.
I was using spy because we use spy on. Okay, so for example, he was spying on the blue house, for example. Okay, and that's why I kind of wanted to use on in this example here, because it's just that phrasal verb kind of situation. Okay, so this is just paying attention.
Okay.
All right, I know it's confusing, Ken, don't worry. This is just extra information today. Okay, so now using the introductory it with the verbs seem, appear, and look. All right, so I'll read these sentences. It says, when the subject is an infinitive phrase, okay, a phrase with a gerund in it or a clause. So for example, it looked as if she would come. All right. It seemed odd that she should act like that, and it seems possible that she'll quit her job. All right, so we're using these with different verbs here. Again, this it to me seems like it's just talking about the situation, and so that's why I kind of think that maybe it's not as difficult as you think. We're just referring to the situation of this happening. Do you see that? Is it difficult? Hey, Lucia's here.
Hello, Becky.
Hi, how are you?
Great, thank you.
How was your trip to Italy? I was gonna say, how was your trip to London?
Beautiful. I hugged my son.
Good. And did he have to work a lot?
Oh, not really.
Okay, that's good. Well, I'm glad you got to spend some time with him then. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So basically, to catch you up, we're looking at the word it today and kind of a lot of its different meanings. And it seems like it's a bit difficult. It seems like it's a bit difficult. Did you see how I used that? So, so good. So we're using the introductory it with seem, appear, and look. And as you can see, we have seems. Oh, I don't have an example for appear. It appears odd. Maybe we'll change this one. Odd that she should act like that. Okay. Do you have any questions? Does this look okay? Does it look like it's super confusing?
No, it's okay for me.
Okay.
Me too.
All right. All right. Well, that's fine. It looks like I'll continue then. All right, so the introductory, it as an object. All right, so it is sometimes used as the object of the verbs think, feel, count, and consider, etc. Okay, so they're not the only verbs, but these are just some. So Lucia, as you just joined, would you mind reading these sentences for us, these examples?
All of them?
Yes, please.
Okay. Don't you think it's too dangerous to drive so fast? She considers it a privilege to have this opportunity. We think it's odd that he hasn't talked to us lately. I think it's a pity that she couldn't come with us today. She made it absolutely clear what she was looking for. I find it difficult to talk to him about certain things.
Good. So basically what they're doing, okay, is using it instead of these verbs, as you can see here. So don't you think it's too dangerous is fine. I'm trying to think. I worded that incorrectly. Uses the object of the verbs. Sorry, not the subject. Okay? So again, in this, to me, it just seems like it's talking about the situation. Okay, don't you think it's too dangerous? Now, I could say it's just too dangerous and stop there if I want, if I know that we're already talking about driving fast. Okay? So again, if we already know that we're talking about an opportunity that someone has, you can say she considers it a privilege. Okay? And you can stop it at this, right after privilege. Okay? So it just depends on the situation, what you already know about the situation, what you've talked about, and things like that as well. Okay? So any questions here? Do you see kind of what's going on? Or should we go through the rest of these examples?
Becky, about the first one, I would say, do you think it's too dangerous to drive so fast?
No.
No. Okay.
No. And I think this is because, well, do you think? In this case, it's basically asking for your opinion. It's kind of like, to me, it seems like a question tag, but without the tag at the end. So do you think it's too dangerous to drive so fast? Actually, I would word this a little bit differently.
It's like to are speaking, I don't know, for example, for a motorbike. In this case, I would say it's too dangerous, referred at the car or motorbikes.
Exactly. So you also, that's perfectly fine. I think when you were saying here with just is, I think because you've heard it many times as it's, but maybe the t sound isn't very noticeable. And so you know that something needs to go there, but you're not exactly sure what. We are using it's. I think that's probably the problem.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. A lot of people say something, he is tall, for he needs to get bigger clothes or something. And instead of that for, we need to say so. But again, people know that, there's something that needs to go there. It sounds similar maybe, but it's not necessarily correct. So you're very close. And again, this is something I said at the beginning of the class, which is, a lot of people don't write it in these sentences because they don't think they need it. Okay, and so I think that's just exactly what happened, and that's perfectly fine.
Okay, thank you.
There's things I say in Spanish, not a problem, that, I know maybe isn't, I know that there's something that needs to go there, but I don't know if it's, the word de or que, and because they sound so similar, I just kind of put one of those in there and, make it work. So I think, it's the same situation, and it's going to happen in any language, okay?
Okay.
All right. So again, we can use this sentence in different ways. Okay. Do you think it's dangerous to drive so fast? Or it's dangerous to drive so fast isn't the last one. The first one just sounds like it's asking for your opinion. Do you think? Okay. What's your opinion? And the first one actually to me sounds like I'm giving my opinion, but asking you at the same time. Okay. Does that make sense? Do you see that?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. All right, so we read all of these. Do you want to look at any more of these before we continue?
No.
Okay. Ken, any questions there?
If I said, if I use relative pronoun, do you think that it's too dangerous? Does it make sense?
Do you think
Maybe
that
for
it?
past sentence,
Yep, let me just
scroll
go
up,
back to
please.
the sentence. Mm-hmm.
Do you think
In which
that
sentence?
it's too dangerous to drive so fast?
That doesn't change. That doesn't change the meaning at all. I don't think this is a relative clause necessarily in this context. Do you
No,
think?
I'm talking about
Do you
first
think?
sentence, maybe second sentence also. Do you think that that it's dangerous?
Don't you think
It's
that? All
impossible.
right, so I put it in the wrong place anyway. That it's too dangerous. No, to me, this is one of those things that, whoops, you can use or not use. This is optional, and this kind of goes with reported speech. So let's say Sue said, oops, I need that comma there too. This is a comma. I like cats, for example, and then I'm going to say, whoops, Sue told me that, and this is the that I don't need that. She likes cats. All right, so that sometimes you can use it, but you don't have to. Okay?
Yeah.
And so that's the same situation here, that you don't need to use that, but you can if you want to.
Okay. It's optional.
Exactly. And sometimes, like for example, I know in Spanish they use a word that means that, and so they will say it because it sounds better to them. Okay, and that's perfectly fine. But if they want to not say it, they don't have to say it either. All right, so let's continue down here. All right, so this is questions. All right, and I actually think this is the last part. Yep, this is the last part of today's PDF class question thing. So if you have any questions, we can go back up to the top, okay? So introductory, it in questions. All right, so I'm just going to read these, okay? And I have this with kind of the introductory it first, and then the second one is without it, but it still means the same thing. Okay, so I have, who was it that broke the glass? All right, so who was it? We're referring to the person as an it here because we don't know who did it. Okay, so we can also say who broke the glass. Okay, so we're still asking the same thing. It means the same thing. Just depends if you want to use who was it. Okay. The second one is it is Pat who broke. This should be it was Pat. Sorry. It was Pat who broke the glass. All right, or Pat broke the glass. Do you see what I'm doing here in these sentences? Let me put some space in between there. Okay, does it make sense? If you can see what I'm doing, does it make sense?
It makes sense to me.
All right, well, maybe I'll have to have you think of some examples for me. All right, so in this next part, it says, why was it that he stole the money? Or you can say, why did he steal the money? Okay, we're still using past tense, past tense in this sentence, stole, and then did he steal is past tense. So we're keeping with the same past tense, just changing the sentence a little, okay? And this one says, it was because he is poor that he stole the money. It seems so long to me. It just seems like a lot more words than I need to say. And so personally, I would say he stole the money because he is poor. Okay. Any questions?
Grammatically possible, but it's not common sentence. It was because he's poor that he stole the money. It's long, complicated.
Yes, that could be it.
Okay.
Again, it kind of depends. It depends what your parents said growing up, if that's the way they speak, if that's the way someone in your family speaks, or if it's just, I wouldn't say it. Well, in some cases I might. It probably wouldn't be as common, like you said, but it's definitely used, and I think that's why it's important to see this. But yeah, this kind of goes back, Ken, to that part where I was saying that the emphasis is, so they could say, why is it that he stole the money? Oh, it was because he's poor that he stole the money. And so you're emphasizing that he's poor first before kind of repeating. And actually, you could just omit this. Okay, you don't need to say this at all. It was because he's poor. Okay, so it doesn't have to be that long. Or you could just say because he is poor. Or just he is poor. Okay?
Okay.
All right, good. Well, let's move down to the next one here then. And it says, when was it that the boss came, or when did the boss come? Okay? It was at 9 a.m. when the boss came, and the boss came at 9 a.m. Okay? So again, the first part is basically adding emphasis. This, at least to me, is adding emphasis. When was it? Is, again, there's lots of words there that don't really need to be said. And so I think, I don't know, I wouldn't always say this. I'm pretty sure I do say it sometimes, though, so maybe not teaching online or teaching in general, but when I'm at home, I'm sure it comes out. All right, so any questions? So we did pretty good. Let me go back to the top so Lucy, you can see some of the things that we've looked at. Yes, Ken?
Basically, when was it reinforced the time?
Mm-hmm.
So if
Well,
I
sorry, Lucy.
want to reinforce the meaning of time, maybe when was it that
When
was
was it?
came? Yeah.
Why was it? And then we had
Uh,
who was it in the first one. So we're using this
maybe
part with question marks.
we maybe the nuance of this sentence is kind of reinforce emphasize the when or why more than second one,
Mm-hmm.
almost probably.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Or focusing on who was it? Who was it that broke the glass? And again, here we don't need to say this either. Say, oh, hey, the glass is broken. Did you see that? Oh, who was it? So, we do use this part, who was it, more commonly by itself than with all of this other information. Just like when someone says, how old are you? And you say the number, you say your age, you don't say, I am years old, okay? That's what you learn in school to learn it correctly, but no one really speaks like that. So, good question. All right, so I just want to go back up here so Lucy can see some other examples of things that we looked at today. And actually, I would always make this, where's my comma? There, my comma, my apostrophe. It's fun to learn other languages. I wouldn't say it is, okay? Unless I really wanted to say it is fun, okay? That's when you separate, the subject and the verb. But I did want to show you that it does follow it plus the verb, okay? Any questions? Let me move down a little bit. This is the same thing, just opposite. Okay, so then there's this as well. Again, I said here that, your opinion is emphasized first, and then everything else is basically the same. The only thing that's different is we're using it in the first part of this sentence. I don't know how fast you read, Lucia, but I think we'll show you to there. Any questions besides this, Miss? Oh, okay. Well, good thought there, Lucy. I just saw what you wrote about the sentence in a book. Exactly. Good. All right. Any other questions? It's like Lana has joined us. I've never seen Lana before, so hello and welcome. We're just finishing our class today about the word it in English and when we use it in sentences. Oh, and Sam as well joined. Yep, Sam, we're also finishing up the class here today, but you can read some of the examples that we're looking at. So let me continue down a little bit. And also, you should be able to watch this video later. You should be able to find that link on the okay? But it is nice to see you both. So, all right, so we're just looking at it, the introductory it in English. Any questions about this? Anything you have for me? Okay, give me
Maybe
just
that
some.
omit S part is the most difficult advanced grammar to this among today's sentence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So actually, if we use kind of these two examples here, okay, so it is obligatory that he pay the fine. You can say he has to pay a fine because he was caught speeding, okay? And then someone can say, well, he was caught speeding. It's obligatory that he pay the fine, okay? That he pays the fine is obligatory. So that's when we can say these things, all right?
Okay.
Or we can just say it is obligatory, okay? Or it's. Does that make sense? You know, these sentences sometimes, I should say, mainly come from a different conversation or different topic. It is clear that he was listening in on our conversation, all right? I can say, I think, well, I think he was listening to us, and you could say, it's clear. It is clear. Okay, because he repeated something that I said, or, you know, something like that. So normally there's a different situation first, and then these sentences are said. And like I said, the best way to think about it is this: it is referring to a situation in which something happened. Okay?
Yes, this part is also difficult for me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't
absolutely.
know that at all before this class. Yes.
You know, and I always thought that too. I always thought, you know, not a lot of, like, no one is using this it. And I was like wondering why. And I came across it in a very advanced book. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's why no one's using it, because they've never learned it. But now in these situations, you learn how to say it, you learn when to use it. And so that's how you learn this, okay? You either hear it like Lucia said, she thought it was an is, and it really is it's, even though it sounds very similar, okay? And she knows that something goes there, but isn't really exactly sure what needs to go there. Okay, so here's the other part. Any final questions? Again, you should be able to watch this. I am recording this, so that shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, Leanna, actually, would you like to introduce yourself? I think you're the only one here that we don't know. Do you know how to unmute yourself? Maybe not. All right. Well, Lana, it's nice to meet you as well. And Sam, nice to see you, as always. As you can all probably tell, Thomas has uploaded a lot of my classes on the Intengo website, so you're more than welcome to check those out. All right, so I'll just do this. I'll just show you this last page here. And yeah, not a problem. Hopefully you enjoy them. Yeah, it took me about a good hour to think of all of those classes. It's not always easy to think of classes that are different, because I've now been working with Thomas for over a year, and you know, don't want to repeat all of the classes. So wonderful. Any final questions before we head off? I think I'll stop sharing my screen so I can actually see you before I say goodbye officially for today. Fantastic. Yeah, Lana, it would be nice to know where you're from. But that's basically all I have for today. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. You don't know how to participate. Well, if you click on, if you put the mouse over your name, you should be able to unmute yourself. Or if you put the mouse on the screen, probably on top of me, and there's a little microphone, you can click on that, and that should unmute you so you can speak. So maybe we'll have to work on that next time. I do have a class. Where am I today? Here's my schedule. So on Sunday, I have another class. This is going to be a role play class. So I'm hoping that we can at least have 4 people because I have some kind of good ideas about in business situations to talk about, to act out. So if you're welcome, if you're able to join me at the same time as today, that would be fantastic. All right. Well, go ahead, check out the schedules, and I am going to stop this broadcast here. So 1 second.